Move to consideration of the Credit Contracts and Financial Services Law Reform Bill. The question is that Part 1 stand part. This is debate on clauses 3 to 70 and schedules 1 to 3.
Mr Chair.
Dr David Clark.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Labor supported this bill to first reading, but did want to see it given more teeth during its progression through the House. The bill does finally at least make some improvements in regulating consumer credit, including third-tier lending or fringe lending or predatory lending, depending on your point of view, where significant harm is being done every day to our most vulnerable families. In my own electorate, I'm aware of vans that have made their way around the suburb of Brockville, at times chased away by angry neighbours concerned about the horrendous practices of these predatory lenders. They turn up on the day that they know the money is most needed. They turn up again when the money comes in to take their cut, and they are like some kind of vampire that sucks the life out of vulnerable consumers at the time when they are indeed most vulnerable in what they might see as an opportunity, but what the rest of us see as a parasitic type of behaviour. The bill embodies the National Government's attitude to protecting consumers, particularly those most susceptible to being preyed on. Its long delayed response, I think, is indicative of a government that is distracted by other issues, more concerned with scandals around Orovida and their support partners, and Mr Chair, to come back to the issue, less focused on getting this important piece of legislation through the House. I mean, it's 2011 was when Simon Power announced that the government is to target unscrupulous credit companies that prey on unwary customers, and where there are gaps in the system that allow the unscrupulous to take advantage of the unwary when it comes to access to consumer finance in these tough economic times. And yet it took 2.5 years, Mr Chair, to even get to the second reading. This government may have the worst economic record in 50 years, as Mr Henare wanted to bring into the debate, but that is very much a broader issue than what we're dealing with here, which is the very specific issue of payday lenders and their parasitic behaviour upon those most vulnerable in society. Instead of carrying out their word in terms of the priority that Mr Power pointed to, those unscrupulous credit companies preying on the unwary consumers, they've passed Crown Minerals bills, road user charges legislation, and so on, and really haven't focused on the issues of looking after our society, regulating it in a way that makes sure our most vulnerable are looked after. The government has had numerous opportunities to address loan sharks and predatory lending, including the review process commenced by Labor and my excellent colleague Carol Beaumont's Members Bill and Credit Reform Responsible Lending Bill in 2011, which I'm sure she will mention in her contribution, and we'll look forward to hearing about that, which was originally, of course, drafted by Charles Chevelle. But they didn't take up that opportunity then. They have sat on their hands, focusing on other distractions, which I won't mention right now, Mr Chair. So serious questions, though, remain around whether the Commerce Commission is adequately resourced to monitor what is happening in the consumer credit area, especially third-tier lenders, and in terms of enforcing the provisions provided for in the bill. And we're yet to see whether there is sufficient support for consumers to know their rights and how they can have them enforced. So, I mean, the other thing to point out, I guess, is that Craig Foss, the Minister and the Chair, has a habit of lodging major supplementary order papers as the bill comes to be read. He's done it belatedly, and we have SOPs here that have come before the House in that regard. I guess he will explain his behaviour, and we will look to understand better why that's so.
Call Carol Beaumont.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Well, I have to say it is a